Well, hello everyone and welcome to another very exciting complete growing guide here on the MIgardener channel. Hopefully you all are going to enjoy this one because in this episode we're talking about apples. Now apples are my favorite, one of my favorite plants to grow. Peaches is my number one. Apples are probably a close second, even though I can't eat them raw because I am allergic. I know it's very unfortunate, but there's something about an apple tree that's just so, I don't know, very beautiful. It's very elegant in the garden. And so I always love growing them, even though I can't eat them. I just, well, I can eat them cooked. I just put them in pies, and we make our own apple jelly, and there's so many cool things to do with them for sure. And Cindy, Mrs. MIgardener, enjoys them as well. So definitely a fun one to grow. But it's something that I think a lot of times people overcomplicate. Apples are certainly one of the more easy fruit trees that there is to grow. Really, there's only a few things you have to remember. So we're gonna go through all those now. The first one is, as always, when you plant your fruit tree, you want to make sure that you dig the hole about 2.5 times the size of the root ball. That makes sure that there's lots of very loose soil for the roots to move through. Apple trees specifically are extremely slow when it comes to deciduous fruit tree growth. Your peach trees, your cherry trees, even your pear trees have quite fast root growth. But with apples, I find that they are just really slow. And you'll find that the thing that kills them off the most is just inadequate root growth. So you want to make sure that you encourage that root growth as much as possible when you first plant them, by making sure that the soil is very loose, well draining, rich in organic matter. It's going to do that. Also, another thing that we always say when we'll get to the fertilizing, but I never, ever fertilize my fruit trees with anything, you know, a fertilizer until after 3 months of growth. But in this case with apples, I actually wait 5 months because they are so slow. With most of actually all of our fruit trees but our apples, I'll be able to fertilize them to get them growing fast after about 3 months. But with apples, I wait 5 months, but we'll get into that fertilizing in just a bit. So yeah, you want to make sure the soil is really loose, full of organic matter, very well draining. You don't want any rot or anything like that. Apples are definitely prone to root rot, also more than most plants as well. So they're very easy to grow when you just take care of a few of those things. The next thing is you also want to make sure that the apple tree has very good weight bearing. So weight bearing branches are very, very important to have, and you want to prune out any non-weight bearing branches. So one of the things we look for is a V. If they have a V in the branch, that is a weak point, and that branch is almost doomed to snap. You want anything that is greater than 65 degrees. So the more 90 degrees it is, the stronger it's going to be, because that weight can bend and it's not going to break as easily. So a lot of these 45-degree branches, we're going to actually train them using weights to be more like 75, 90 degrees if we could get them that low. But yeah, so you just want to make sure that if you do have any really strong, strong upward growth, what you want to do is try pruning first. First and foremost, that's the first thing you can do, is prune the top lateral growth or the upward growth to promote that lower lateral growth on some of these lower branches. You want to get some lateral growth going. And then what you can do is then you can take string, and I like to take just regular baker's string, and I will tie off at the very end of the branch, and I'll take tent stakes, and I will tent stake down, and I will tie it off until the tree just basically says, okay, I'm not going to try fighting this anymore. I'm just going to grow like this, and it will pretty much just stay. It will just stay like that once it starts to stiffen up its bark, and that outer cambium layer kind of just stiffens up. You'll have a very good strong branch. So you don't have to prune all of your 45-degree branches. You can train them to be more of like a 90-degree branch. And that's typically what we do to reduce the amount of pruning we have to do, because we find that about 1 out of every 6 branches is enough to carry the weight of future fruit. Now, one thing that is always important to talk about is having a cross. Apples need a cross, so you don't have to necessarily have like 3 or 4 different apple trees. Just having one other apple tree is, I can't say mandatory, because typically there's a lot of different apple trees in the area that are wild apple trees that will cross, but to have really good guaranteed success, I do stress having a second tree. So even though we don't consume a lot of apples here, we still put a second one in just for measure of having good production. And so we have a Honeycrisp here, and we have a Gala over there. And that way, when the honeybees and the different pollinators come, they're going to cross that pollen, and it's going to increase your production. And the next thing comes to fertilizing. Now, when it comes to fertilizing your tree, again, I said this in the beginning, you do not want to fertilize in the first 5 months. And fertilize is different than giving it just a little bit of feeding. So what we do is we make compost tea and worm tea, very, very, very gentle fertilizers to simply feed the plant, promote some growth, but not actually to stop root development altogether. Roots have a main goal, and that's to find nutrients in water, and the plant will send those roots out to try to find those nutrients in water. And if you feed the roots right at the base, the roots are not encouraged to go out. And with deciduous trees that go dormant, you need to send the roots way down deep past the frost zone where they can be protected. So even on the coldest of winters, they're going to survive. Now, with your apple trees, a lot of times people ask kind of what zone can they survive, and that kind of gets into the cold hardiness. You can grow your apple trees in anything below zone 4. So zone 4 down to about zone 8, maybe 9. Now after zone 9, you lose your chill hours. As we talked about with cherries, if you saw that growing guide, having chill hours are very, very, very important to fruit production. If the tree does not get chill hours, there's no reset period, and it will simply grow. So you can grow fruit trees in Southern California like apples, but since there's no chill hours, it's going to have a hard time resetting and saying, hey, winter has come and now it's time to produce more flowers. With apple trees, they need about 500 to 800 chill hours. So that's why a lot of your apples are grown in colder climates, like Washington and Michigan are huge apple producers because of that reason, because they just get those really good chill hours that are required to give a kind of a hard reset to the plant to say, hey, let's put out lots of fruit now. So definitely zone 4 to zone 8 is great. Zone 3, you could try it with some of your very cold hardy varieties, but it's definitely hit or miss for sure. And then the very final thing that I want to talk about was watering. So when you water, you want to make sure that you give them, when you first plant them, a gallon every day for the first 3 weeks. After those 3 weeks, a gallon every other day for 2 weeks. After those 2 weeks, make sure they get a gallon a week. And that way they just stay unstressed and they're going to do fine. They're going to grow, they're going to do very well for you. And then in the spring, you're going to see beautiful white flowers. Now with apples specifically, I don't let them flower the first year. With some of our peach trees and our cherry trees and things like that, if they flower, that's fine because the flowers actually come after growth. With our apple trees, I will actually stop them from flowering their first year because the fruit is so large and it takes so much energy away. And like I said, the root development is so slow on apples that I don't want to sacrifice that by saying, hey, let's get 5 to 10 apples on this tree, at the expense of losing it. So what I'll do is I'll go through here, and when I see the flowers, I'll pick them off, and I won't allow the tree to flower the first year. But the next year, you can totally let it flower. It's gonna be great, and that's just optional too. You can decide if you want to do it or not. I find that I've had very, very good success with it by doing that, and it certainly reduces the amount of stress that it has on the tree. So, anyways, that's all you need to know about growing apples, or most of it. I think I pretty much touched on everything. If you have any questions, sun exposure, almost forgot. So sun exposure with all of your fruit trees, apples included, make sure they get at least 8 hours. You need 8 hours of full sun to do really well. The tags will always go on the lower side. Don't follow the fruit tags. I never follow them because they're pointless. They always err on the side of like, can we sell this tree? So they'll say, 6 hours, because most people have 6 hours. I recommend 8 hours to have good fruit production. 6 hours is just not enough. And so you'll do much better with 8 hours. These will actually get around 10 to 12 hours, which is awesome. So make sure they get good full sun, and that's it. Now that is just about everything to growing fruit, to growing apple trees. If you have any more questions, post them in the comments box below. I'd be glad to answer them. And also make sure to check out our other growing guides over at MIgardener.com. You can go to the media tab. We have videos, tons of free growing guides. I think we have almost 30 now, complete growing guides on fruits and vegetables now, which is awesome. And we're gonna be adding to them every day, which is wonderful. So, or at least weekly. So I'm having a good day. Cold's maybe getting to me a little bit, but we will talk to y'all later. Hopefully you all having a great day. Hopefully you all are remembering to grow big or go home. And this is Luke from the MIgardener channel. I'll see you later. Bye.